In this episode of Talking About Orks, we're going to be going over the Ork Boy, the humble or not so humble Ork Boy, depending on how you look at it. Ork Boys, of course, are the core of any or almost any Ork army, and will always show up just about in any list. Ork Boys, of course, have not changed much in quite a while, and because they don't need to. They are currently movement 5, weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 5, strength 4, toughness 4, 1 wound, 2 attacks, 6 leadership, and a 6-up save, as always. The boss knob, of course, adds 1 strength, 1 wound, 1 attack, and 1 leadership. And of course, boss knobs are free, so you'll always take one because there's no reason not to. The unit consists of 10 Ork Boys. It can include up to 10 additional Ork Boys for +3, so 7 power level, or 20 additional Ork Boys for 11 power level. Boss knob can take the place of 1 Ork Boy. Each model is armed with a slugga, choppa, and stick bombs. So you can use the grenade stratagem on these guys if you want to. Throw 10 stick bombs. It's an option. I don't ever see a reason to do it, but it's possible. Of course, the choppa is +1 attack, so each model armed with a slugga and chopper will have 3 base attacks at strength 4, weapon skill 3. And the pistol is 12-inch pistol 1, 4, 0, 1. Or any Ork Boy may replace his choppa and slugga with a shooter. So we can replace any number of them. You don't have to replace the whole unit anymore. It can be any number of them. So you'd have 25 slugga choppas and 10 shooters if you wanted to, or any combination thereof, which is, you know, not a bad idea. I've personally never done it, but there's nothing that says it isn't viable as an option for your units, because it gives you a little more tactical flexibility in a particular unit, being a combination of sluggas and choppas, or sluggas and shooters. For every 10 models unit, 1 Ork Boy may take a tank buster bomb. This is something new that's to the codex. Tank buster bombs are free. They're 0 points, so there's no reason not to take 3 tank buster bombs in a unit. I would definitely make sure you model it that way so it's clear which models have the tank buster bomb if you're going to do it, because of course they are only 6-inch range, and in a big mob most of the time 2 of them are going to be out of range of whatever you're shooting at or overwatching. So just something to keep in mind, that modeling tank buster bombs is going to be pretty important, especially in mob to 30. For every 10 models unit, 1 Ork Boy may replace his slugga and chopper with a rocket launcher or a big shooter. So again, this is the same way it's always been. You can always take up to 3 in a mob of 30 of these heavy weapons. Big shooters are just gone down in price, so, and they have the range. The rockets, of course, are still pretty good, especially when you combine with Daka. They're very, very much worth taking, I think, especially in a shooter boys unit. And the boss knob replaces slugga and chopper with items from the knob weapons list, so pretty much gives you a lot more options than what it had before, because you can take, in addition to power claws and big choppas, you have other options from the knob's weapon list, which you did not have in previous editions. So the knob can take a big chopper, a choppa, kill slaw, power claw, power stabba, or slugga. So you can replace your choppa and slugga with a slugga. It's just there for completeness. And you can also take a combi weapon with rocket launcher, a combi weapon with scorcha. So your boy's knob now has more flexibility than ever. You can, in fact, if you want to, give him 2 choppas for an extra attack, extra base attack, you know, strength 5, 0, 1. That's an option. You can also give him a kill saw. Technically, you can give him 2 kill saws for an extra attack. I mean, there are a couple more points than a power claw, and if you give him 2 of them, it gets quite spendy, but it's an option. You can actually give your boy's knob 2 kill saws. Power stabba, of course, is something that was newly introduced with the last index to go along with the model, or the bit that's in the knobs box. Power stabba is strength, user AP -2, 1 damage. -2 is pretty good, but no, I'd rather just take a big choppa. So yeah, I mean, that gives your boy's knob a lot more options than he ever had before. And of course, it's always cool to model stuff like that if you wanted to. So that is the knob. And of course, Ork Boyz did actually go up a point in this book over previous editions. That's because they benefit from the clan cultures. And the clan cultures is really what makes Ork Boyz shine like stars. So, of the clan cultures, probably Evil Sunz is going to be one of the most common for boys, because that extra movement is huge for getting across the board. Because it gives you an extra inch of movement, extra inch of running, and extra inch of charging. So they have a minimum move of 8 inches when they advance. Minimum. And of course maximum of 13. And if you do roll that 6 to charge, of course, or 6 to run, you're 11 life with these guys. And of course, Evil Sunz, you will see them with shooters because they can advance and shoot their shooters and rockets without penalty. So combined with Daka Daka Daka, you know, that's pretty effective. But don't discard Slug and Chopper Boys when it comes to Evil Sunz, because you can put them in Teleporter or the Jump. And because of the extra inch to charge, they now have a much better chance of making that charge. They only have to roll an 8 with rerolls, which comes up to like a 72.5% chance of making a charge, which is pretty good. Pretty good. Of course, they have Here We Go, Mob Roll, and Daka Daka Daka. Mob Roll is probably one of the most important ones for keeping them around. Here We Go, of course, is the rerolling charges. Daka 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 really helps with shooters. And Green Tide, add 1 to the attack characteristics of models in this unit while it contains 20 or more models, which is great, especially if you mob up a unit of 30 and a unit of 10, and then jump them with their Evil Sunz, 72% chance to charge. Absolutely devastating. The other traits, say, is Goths. Goths to me is probably what Ork Boyz are really made for. The exploding 6s in close combat are just fantastic, especially if you add a war banner nearby to get that +1 to hit, and maybe extra attacks from Warpath and or Gazi. It just go ape. And then on top of it, you can spend the command point to give them Scar Boys if they're Goths for strength 5. And against most armies, you're going to want to take that. I mean, there are going to be some exceptions. You have to look at what your opponent's playing. And like say against Harlequins with everything's either toughness 3 or toughness 6, you probably don't need to strength 5. It's not going to make much difference. In Stark Eldar, where they have a lot of toughness 5 models, it's going to make a difference. But you really have to evaluate what your opponent has. Against anything that's Marines, of course, you will want the strength 5 against their toughness 4. Bad Moons, again, Bad Moon shooter bombs. Fantastic. Shooters, rockets with the reroll 1s to hit, and the access to showing off. Sure, you'll probably most of the time want to save showing off for your Ludas with the Bad Moons, but you don't have to. You can definitely use showing off with Shooter Boys if there's something that they are going to be better at taking out. If you need more shots than the Ludas can provide. Death Skulls, again, Death Skulls are going to be really good with that 6-up invul save, and the Death Skull rerolls, you're almost guaranteed to save for your knob in close combat, so you can reroll 1 to hit, 1 to wound, and 1 damage roll with the Power Claw. Excellent use of Death Skulls. So Death Skulls might be better as smaller units, so you can get more rerolls per turn, but it's definitely not the only way to go. For sure, it's again a very viable tactic. There's lots of things you can try and do with the Death Skulls or cultures and boys. They kind of interact strangely compared to the other ones, because it kind of wants you to take smaller units, as I said, to make sure you maximize the rerolls with Power Claws. Blood Axe is great for these, again, because extra survivability as they're marching up the table with that +1 save. Not against everything, of course. A 5-up save versus a 6-up save isn't a huge difference. But the thing about the Blood Axes is you can use the Blood Axe stratagems and save some command points over Teleporter. because for 1 command point you can go up to 8 power level, which means 20 boys can go into deep strike for 1 command point, as opposed to 2 using teleporter. That's not bad. That's a good way to use your blood axes. And you can drop them down, say, on an objective instead of in an assault mode. Or maybe just take 10 boys for 1 command point, put them in deep strike, and drop them on objectives over the course of the game. And then snake bites. Snake bites are going to be the least, because if you're going to run snake bites, you might as well just run death skulls for the so an invul over to feel no pain, and the rerolls on top of it. Yeah, so snake bites. Snake bites is probably, unfortunately, the weakest culture by a large margin. And freebooters. I mean, there's nothing wrong with freebooters, because boys can gain the +1 to hit from freebooters if a nearby unit kills something. It's viable. I'm not sure how viable it's going to be going forward, but it's not something that's going to hurt you for sure. So freebooters is also a viable culture. Basically, boys are great. No matter what you'd play, they're going to just swarm people down in just sheer number of dice, both in shooting and in close combat. And depending on the culture, again, more shooting, more close combat, more speed, more survivability. However you choose to play them, pick a culture and it will work. That's the great thing about this book in general, is that the cultures can be chosen to match your playstyle, and they definitely work well. Absolutely astonishingly well with Ork Boys especially. Which is why they went up a point, because those cultures make them so much more powerful than they have ever been before. And they were always a top tier close combat unit. They've always been a threat once they get into combat. There are exceptions, of course. There are a couple units you don't want to get into close combat with. One of them, the biggest one to me, the #1 unit you want to keep the boys away from, is Mortarion. Because Mortarion has 18 attacks, hitting on 2s with rerolls, wounding on 2s with rerolls. He's almost guaranteed to kill 18 boys a turn. Plus he's got other abilities which can cause additional mortal wounds in addition to those 18 attacks. So you probably want to keep them away from Mortarion. You want to shoot him with your Ludus twice. The other one is your Gorkonauts. The lowly Gorkonaut also has 18 attacks, which can buff to hitting on 2s, killing on 2s. So you want to be wary of Gorkonauts and Ork Boys. Knights, you know, surprisingly, just regular knights aren't that scary, because a regular knight only has 12 attacks hitting on 3s. So you're probably only going to kill 6 to 9 boys in a turn. That's quite survivable, and especially you can retaliate with a Power Claw and Strength 5. Strength 5 boys wounding on 5s. You know, that's not bad odds as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there's that one knight that's like has 5 attacks that hits on 2s. He's a little more deadly because he's got 15 attacks, probably gonna kill about 12 to 13. But losing 12 versus 18 to 20 with Mortarion, it's still pretty good odds. So Mortarion is the #1 unit you want to keep your boys away from. Gorkonaut's #2. And past that, you know, you pretty much can get away with anything. Of course, you do have to worry about units that can fall back and still recharge, like anything that, or fall back and shoot. But in general, there's not much that's going to survive boys charging. Again, so that pretty much wraps up this video. I know it's a long video. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to Ork Boys. Surprisingly, as before, there wasn't one, but the way they now interact with the clan cultures changes how you play them, which I think is just absolutely fantastic, and adds a lot of flavor and variety to your Ork armies. Again, Evil Sun's running up the board and shooting Bad Moons with more quality and of shots. Goths with just pure close combat ability. Death Skulls with tricks and luckiness. All of these are just great. and really make the Ork Boy one of the deadliest units in the game. Pure and simple. They're hard to kill for most armies, especially in large numbers. So you want to really, if you're really going to take out boys, you want to consider 90 to be the minimum. 3 units of 30 boys should be your minimum for any sort of foot slogging army. Even if you're running on trucks or something like that, you're still going to want 30 to 60. Even 3 trucks is 36 boys, just like that. So let me know what you're thinking below. As I said, there's a lot of information here. Hope you stuck around to the end, and thanks for watching. Thank you for watching this episode of Talking About Orks. Please subscribe and hit the bell button for notifications for new Talking About Orks videos every Wednesday, new battle reports every Friday, and hobby videos whenever I can. Thanks for watching.